This is episode 48 of the Why Not Me podcast. What's essential? Identity and purpose of moms. I'm your host, Danita Bremer. I'm a wife, mom, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and a life coach. And I believe when you know who you are, you can be the best you at what you're called to do. This requires faith, wisdom, and mental wellness. That's what we talk about here. Okay, I just want to apologize from the get-go that if this episode feels a little scattered or if I stumble over my words, just a reminder that I try to do these episodes in one take. And even though I have an outline today, I feel a little scattered about this. Like, what exactly am I trying to say here? But this morning in my scripture study and prayer, I asked Heavenly Father, what is most essential today? And the first thing was podcast. So here I am. I'm trying to record this right before my kids get home from school when it's a little bit more quiet in the house. And I have some ideas and some quotes, but I'm not 100% certain what the point of this episode is. So just bear with me. I think a lot of this podcast is me verbalizing and figuring out what I'm trying to say as I'm saying it. So let this just be a permission slip for you to do the same. You don't always have to know what your point is before you get on the mic. So I'm just living proof of this. I like to follow Greg McKeown, who is the author of the books Essentialism and Effortless. And he's also the host of the What's Essential podcast. And he's also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It doesn't really have any bearing on his work. Sometimes, occasionally, he'll mention it. But I don't know. I just like to follow other Latter-day Saints and see what work they're doing in the world and use them as examples in my own work, honestly. And his philosophy, this idea of kind of narrowing our lives down to the most essential, and how do we figure out what the most essential thing is and then go do that and be that versus allowing the world's sort of messages and to-do list interfere, right? And I think each of us as individuals has something that is essential to us, that is unique to us. Like what's essential to me is not going to be the same thing as what is essential to you. But I say this because I love this idea of really honing in on what is the most important thing and how do I move the needle on the most important thing. So when I ask myself, what is the most important thing? I automatically go to my faith and my belief in God and that kind of a worldview that my religion, my spirituality is what determines what is the most important thing for me. And I think also, I just want to say that we're all unique individuals. And like I said, we all have different things that are essential to us. So it really boils down to that for me of like, who am I? I kind of believe that what is the most important, most essential thing for me and what my purpose is on this life or as a mother or whatever role I play is actually found in my identity. So I think a lot about identity and purpose. And part of this is because this is a central theme in my spirituality, in my religion. And like, I just have a few quotes here to kind of like help paint this picture. Henry B. Eyring, in a BYU speech entitled Teaching is a Moral Act, said, helping others understand their true identity and purpose is one of the greatest gifts we can give. And that's like a quote that just, it just gives me chills, because I think the reason it gives me chills is because it speaks to me. I want to help others understand their true identity and purpose. In this BYU speech, he talks about seeing students through the lens of their highest potential. And I love that because as a coach, one of my jobs, and I don't know if every coach would say that this is their job, but my personal belief as a coach is that one of my jobs is to see my client through the best possible lens, through like seeing their highest potential, who they are. I almost think of it like seeing them as best as I can in my fallen mortal state, seeing them the way God sees them. And that's something that I pray for. That's something that I work for because it doesn't come naturally. It's not like a human tendency to see other people in their highest potential. If we all did that, the world would be an amazing, beautiful place. And in many ways, the world is an amazing, beautiful place, but it's also a very broken, fallen, place full of hurt. And so if everyone walked around the world seeing every person they come in contact with in their highest potential, then there would be so much love and compassion and understanding in the world. And there would be a lot less judgment and anger and fear and things like that. So that's one little quote. The next quote is from Bonnie Cordon in the last General Conference, October 2021. And the talk is entitled Come Unto Christ, But Don't Come Alone. And she was relaying the story of when President Nelson was calling her to be, I think she's the Young Women General President. Should have double checked that. And she said that President Nelson asked her, Bonnie, what's the most important thing the youth need to know? I pondered for a moment and said, they need to know who they are. Yes, he exclaimed, and they need to know their purpose. So those two things, identity and purpose, are very tied together. And like I said a minute ago, my theory at the moment, at least, is that each individual's purpose comes from their identity. I have one more quote here, and it's a little bit long, but it's so good because when I think about what is essential, I really think about moms. I think about mothers and how when mothers are in a good place, when mothers are healthy and strong, then they have so much influence for good in this world. And so that is where I have put my focus because I believe that that is where I personally can make the most difference and the most change. And I just think that if every mother had a therapist or a coach or a team of people cheering her on and helping her along, then again, the world would just be this amazing, beautiful place. And I think when we help heal mothers and help support mothers, mothers naturally turn around. Many mothers, I won't say that this is like a generalized statement, but maybe not every mother is perfect and good, but I would say by and large, when mothers feel supported and healthy and strong, they take their energy and their efforts and they buoy other people up, right? They, teach and mentor and guide children of the next generation. They reach out to their peers, their sisters, their like whoever their peers are. They reach up to their parents and their grandparents and their aunts and their uncles. Like each mother has so much potential. And I don't know, like that is very impressive to me. I don't actually, funnily enough, I don't think of that with myself. Like I don't necessarily see in myself that I'm a mother and I have this grand purpose and this powerful reach to do good. I do think it's harder to see in ourselves than in other people. But anyway, I'll get to this quote and then I'll expound a little bit more. And this quote is from Julie B. Beck in General Conference, October 2007. It's a talk entitled Mothers Who Know. The whole talk is really good, but I really loved these couple of paragraphs. The responsibility mothers have today has never required more vigilance. More than at any time in the history of the world, we need mothers who know. Children are being born into a world where they wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And that's from Ephesians 6:12. However, mothers need not fear. When mothers know who they are and who God is and have made covenants with him, they will have great power and influence for good on their children. Who will prepare this righteous generation of sons and daughters? Latter-day Saint women will do this. Women who know and love the Lord and bear testimony of him. Women who are strong and immovable and who do not give up during difficult and discouraging times. We are led by an inspired prophet of God who has called upon the women of the church to stand strong and immovable for that which is correct and proper under the plan of the Lord. He has asked us to begin in our own homes, to teach children the ways of truth. Latter-day Saint women should be the very best in the world at upholding, nurturing, and protecting families. I have every confidence that our women will do this and will come to be known as mothers who knew. And of course, that's a reference from Alma chapter 56. Their mothers knew it, the stripling warriors, right? Oh, you guys, I just love that so much. When mothers know who they are and who God is and have made covenants with him, they will have great power and influence for good on their children. And I just see this as a ripple effect. I don't think it's just influence for good on their children. It's influence for good on their children and on their children's children and on their children's children's children, right? Like throughout the generations, and for their children and their children's friends and for their friends and for their husbands. And it's like each mother is the center of a star that shines brightly. And everyone in her sphere of influence gets to partake of that light. It's not just their children, right? It's not just our children. And that is why when I think about the work I do as a coach, I very much think it is a spiritual work, and it is a work in which I get to help mothers, and especially members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, mothers. I know that's really clunky and long to say, but I get to help that specific group of women, of which I'm a part, to not fear, right? This quote said, however, mothers need not fear. And if I read that quote and it made you feel shame, or it made you feel overwhelmed, or it made you feel discouraged, there's something in your way. There's an obstacle to you feeling like you are one of those mothers who knows. And that's the work that I feel so called to do and so inadequate to do. Like, I can't do that. Who am I to do that? How do we even start? How do we even begin? Right? That is such a grand work. But it also calls to me, and it feels empowering, and it feels right. It just feels like, oh, yes, that is what I am supposed to be doing right now. I think about, we have plenty of these mothers who are strong and immovable and who are teaching and influencing others for good. We have plenty of mothers who do know who they are and know their purpose and know who God is and have made covenants with God. That maybe isn't the group of people that I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to the moms who want that, but for some reason feel like there's something in the way, that they don't have it yet, that they're not there yet. And honestly, even the mothers who do feel strong, who are influencing, who do feel like they know themselves, there are moments because in many ways, I feel like I'm one of those mothers, but I have days and weeks and months and moments when I don't feel that way, when I get confused about, wait, who am I again? And who is God and what is this work and how am I supposed to do it? And all those questions come up and I have to remind myself. So I am speaking to the mothers who know, and I'm also speaking to the mothers who want to be a mother who knows, who feels overwhelmed and discouraged and ashamed and guilty and inadequate. That's the people. Those are the women that I am speaking to. And it's because I was that woman, and through a lot of work, and I still have work to do my whole life, honestly. I'm not naive enough to think that my work is done and it's all behind me and now I can just move forward and help others. No, I go forward like one or two steps on the path and then I turn and help other people. And then I go back a little bit and I'm still helping other people. And I heard this beautiful story last night at our ward's little Relief Society Christmas gathering about a Jewish person during the Holocaust, during World War II, who was describing a night where he was in a boxcar on the side, stopped on the tracks, and it was frigid winter cold. And there was an old man in the boxcar with him that he recognized was from his town. And he hadn't ever had any contact with the old man, but he knew of him. And he had never seen the old man so cold and shivery and struggling. So he moved over, and all night long, he rubbed the old man's arms and legs. And it just, in this little snippet of a story, he said, like, I just kept rubbing him and keeping him warm and telling him it's going to be okay. We're going to make it to the morning. And when the morning came, and he says, the sunlight started to come into the boxcar and the boxcar started to warm up ever so slightly, he like cheered to himself, like, oh, we made it. And he lifted his head up and he saw that he was surrounded by a bunch of dead bodies. And the only people that survived that night, that frigid, cold winter night in that boxcar, were him and the old man. The old man survived because somebody wrapped his arms around him and kept him warm. And the younger man who's telling the story survived because he had somebody to keep warm. Oh, isn't that such a beautiful, heartwarming, tender story? That when we know who we are and we do our work, it benefits us too. And it's not like a linear line where we're always moving forward. Sometimes we're moving backward and we're the ones that need help. And when we are helping other people, they have an opportunity to lift us up and to help us. I wanted to talk a moment about the obstacles to this confidence, this faith, this knowing, being a mother who knows. I think it basically boils down to the main obstacle is fear. But as humans, we like to make things very complicated and nuanced. And so there is a fear of I can't do it, I'll fail, I'm not enough, right? Which maybe I would call inadequacy. And then there's also doubt, like, who am I and who is God? And there's confusion, like, how exactly do we do this? And I have a few antidotes to offer to these three specific obstacles: fear, doubt, and confusion. There are lots more obstacles, right? But I think it basically boils down to these flavors of I can't do it, who am I, who is God, and how. Those are the things that I feel like are the most common. But again, like, you probably have some other version of this that might sound a little bit different. And I think about the fear that I can't do it. And I think about how with God anything is possible, how over and over again in the scriptures, whether it's the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Book of Mormon, God shows his power and he shows that it's not man, right? Like, how many times have we heard that, the Lamanites outnumbered the Nephites? that like even the Israelites were always outnumbered. Why is it that God's people were always outnumbered? I don't think that that was a coincidence. I think it was intentional on God's part to show us that you can feel outnumbered, you can feel alone, you can feel inadequate. But when you're with me, when you're with God, anything is possible. God is all powerful, right? God is all knowing. God is everything. And whatever God's will is what will happen. And so when you feel inadequate, when you feel incapable, when you feel incompetent, like just know that God is with you, and with God, anything is possible. When you feel that doubt, like, who am I to do this? Who is God? Right? I mean, that's where the title of my podcast comes from. Like, why not me? Because we always ask, why me or who am I? When really we should be asking, why not me? I am a daughter of God, right? Like, and again, with God, anything is possible. And when we find ourselves asking the how and being confused, we can remember that when we follow the Spirit, which is basically following God and God's will, the how will reveal itself. We don't need to know the how ahead of time. And I love this concept about faith being a not knowing, right? Like all three of these, fear, doubt, and confusion, require faith to overcome them. They require faith in yourself and faith in God, and faith that if you follow the Spirit, it will all work out. I remember when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, and my mom had already passed away, and I wasn't close with any of my aunts or anybody else who had had children. And I remember thinking, like, how exactly am I going to do this? How do you grow a baby in your body and then birth the baby? Like, how, right? Like, how? We can still ask that question, even though it happens every day. And I remember feeling really scared and really like I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. Something terrible is going to go wrong. I won't be able to handle it. And I remember telling myself, don't be silly, Danita. Women have been doing this for centuries. Your body knows how to birth a baby, and you're going to have a whole team of people. You're going to have doctors and nurses and a husband, and, like, you figure it out. And that's what we have to do sometimes when we feel that fear and that doubt and the confusion. We just have to trust, and we have to have faith. I just want to remind you that your purpose lies in your identity. When you know who you are, truly, really the way God sees you, everything else just will kind of fall into place. That is why I do this work, because ultimately these obstacles of fear and doubt and confusion, these are not just spiritual obstacles. These are emotional obstacles. These are mindset obstacles. It's, mind, body, and spirit. these obstacles of fear and doubt and confusion amongst all the rest of them, right? Before finding the coaching work, I was searching for like, how do I address these obstacles? And then coaching has brought me there. And I've since, I started out with mindset coaching, and I've added some like emotional management tools, and I've added some nervous system regulation tools. And I'm working on like an identity blueprint kind of, I don't even know what it's going to be, a workbook, a workshop, a coaching package. I don't know quite what it's going to be yet, but it's because like this is the most essential work in my mind, is helping mothers overcome these obstacles so that they can do their work in the world, so that they can be the most powerful form of themselves with God's help, right? Always with God. Okay, that's enough for now. And so are you. Remember, whatever work you feel called to do, who are you and why not you? Thanks for listening to the podcast. If this episode made you think of yourself in a new way, would you please give it a rating and a review? And if you want to truly do the work of being the best you at what you do, go to danitabremmer.com to schedule a free session. Until next time, go be you and follow the Spirit.